right, let's just see how that goes. Okay, well, hey, thanks for those of you who are joining this afternoon. Ostensibly, you probably would know my name, but just in case, I'm Barry Hawkins, and I work in the space of software. There's a lot of information on the material and training that I do with clients and inside of companies around development process, software product development. And it's been a weird year and a half with the pandemic. I was just starting at the current place that I work to tee up a big change management program, moving from functionally siloed development teams to cross-functional development teams, agile development process being a bit more deliberate and specific, with a view and a runway to scaling. And that was, we had first laid out the plan of what it most looked like for V1 2 weeks before work from home started, and I still remember being on a Zoom call with my boss, the COO, and my two counterparts, the VP of engineering and VP of product management at the time. And we said to ourselves, well, I guess we're going to have to start all of this remotely over Zoom. And that was a first for me. I've never moved an entire organization to the types of development process and mindset that I lead people in and help people adopt completely over video conferencing. So that it was a fun and interesting journey. I like, no joke. There was a lot of learning. It's pressures like that bring out new realizations sometimes, and that's certainly what last year was for me. How we got here to me doing live video, as we went through the pandemic, it gave me a lot of time to reflect and think about what it takes to get people to work together at scale, and it made me think about some things that I hadn't thought about since around 2011, 2012. Because 2011, 2012, that was when I was last fully consulting. I did not work inside of companies. For an 8-year stretch, I was purely working with clients to adopt Agile at various scales, ranging from 5-person startups to Fortune 500 companies. And the way that you connected with your community, that we connected with our community as people who did that, consultants who did that, and how you got your name out there and met people and built relationships was very different back then, even though YouTube was around, even Twitch. You spoke at conferences and user groups, and it was there are interesting constraints with those vehicles, because typically, like, you're someone out there who's getting your name out. Maybe some of the clients you work with are brands or organizations that people realize without you having to explain who they are. And when people, for whatever reason, when people hear you're working with those, it's, people at other known brands, it's like, well, if they're working with those folks, then it probably makes sense for me to talk to them. It wouldn't be insane. I wouldn't be being reckless. I wouldn't be exposing myself to the nobody ever got fired for buying IBM or Oracle or AWS. I just skipped through like 5 to 10 year periods with those 3 platforms, I realized. But you still, promoting yourself, you still were bound largely to to large-scale conferences, the user group circuit, love me a user group, Java user groups. I spent a lot of time in, but also Linux and Python user groups, and then if you had a website or a blog, and if you wrote books, if you authored a book, those were really the way to connect with people who were into the things that you do and approach things the way that you do, and that's how you found work, it was good, but it was also limiting, because take conferences, for example. With conferences, you have to write up an abstract of this is what the talk's going to be, and they typically they'll even push for the whole talk. Some conferences will even push for the slide deck. Now, mind you, this is usually sometimes 12 months before the conference, but super often, 9 months, at the very least 6 months. And they'll ask you to produce a completely rendered slide deck for a talk months in advance. Which the irony is not lost on me of being asked to submit a talk on agile and iterative product development, completely finished 9 to 12 months in advance. So as I was working over the past year and a half and thinking about how I used to connect with companies and clients and individuals, I realized that there were other options now, and one of the first things that made me think about this was having to do basically every business interaction, every bit of training and mentoring all over Zoom. I realized that on some level, I was doing live video all the time. And for things like town halls, or bringing 100 or 200 people together to talk about a given thing we needed to do, it was live, and it was it's using what tools Zoom has to offer. And don't get me wrong, Zoom's improved a lot over the last year and a half. I used it back at Hulu in 2017, 18. It even in the last year, when I was using Zoom again, then a year and a half, started using it again a year and a half ago, it had even come a long way from before. But it's still, when it comes to how to composite things, mix things, do anything but have your webcam going straight to a feed and sharing your screen, it was pretty rudimentary. And I was catching up with Mike Cohn, a colleague of mine, also in the Agile space, about what it's been like over the pandemic. For me, inside of a company, leading a large group through a transformation or an evolution. Transformation, to me, often implies a more finite and transactional period than what most organizations are typically experiencing. But I wanted to know from him, what's it been like delivering training? Because Mike mostly delivers training and workshops to companies, which is very time boxed, way more transactional, and has historically anyway been always in person, always with groups of people that have scheduled in advance. And we were, as we were talking, I asked him, I said, by the way, a couple of years ago, you started putting out videos, these short videos you've been doing around user stories, better user stories, aspects of Scrum, agility. What did you do? What did it take to do that? And he's like, well, he said one thing I would suggest you look at is this studio course from a group, livestreamingpros.com, which is Luria Petrucci and David Foster, Man, I hope I just remembered David's last name right. If I didn't, David, I'm sorry. And when he said livestreamingpros.com, my first thought was, why in the world would you undertake everything that it does to do live streaming, to just to record professional training and business videos? But I also have a lot of faith in Mike's opinion and perspective. And so as I checked it out, I came to realize, wow, actually, most of the equipment, the workflow, the mechanics and process for doing live stream and recording video these days is virtually identical. When you're doing it yourself and using the types of cameras that one person shows, or small outfits like I have historically been or doing, and that that got me to thinking about what all could I do with an investment in making video, and what live streaming could possibly be. And it's been pretty fascinating. If anyone is interested in producing live video, doing streaming, I definitely recommend checking out that very affordable, worth way more than you pay for course from Live Streaming Pros. So I've just been working with this stuff, getting the hardware and so forth for like the last month or so, and so this obviously not a lot of no scripting actually, but just a first pass at, all right, let's plumb everything up, let's hook together vMix going to YouTube and Facebook, let's get all of the mechanics up with the current ISP that I have in this condo, and just see how it goes. And it's been fun constraints. Like, for example, I live, my family and I live in a condo in mid-city Santa Monica that is kind of like a greenhouse. You can probably know, like the light behind me, I look like I'm streaming from the last 30 seconds of Rogue One here, and it's because 50% of the walls around me are single pane glass, so there's all the light coming in from all the directions, which is when you take courses and learn about streaming, video production, controlling your light is one of the things you most need to do. That's not happening here. But learning how to deal with that and accommodate it, and make the best of the situation has been part of the fun. So, what am I wanting to do with this? Well, one of the things that I've missed in 2012, when I joined Riot Games, that's when I went from consulting full time to being inside a company, and it's been great. Like one of the premises I had with moving to working inside of companies was that as a consultant, the longer you spend outside of companies, and the more your work doesn't get close to the complications and the difficulties of actually implementing and doing the things, there's a risk of becoming a bit detached from the complications and challenges of helping people adopt different ways of working, interacting and viewing one another in ways that foster a greater sense of trust and psychological safety, so that collaboration and creativity can flourish, as opposed to be forced to thrive in a somewhat hostile environment to the very thing that you're asking people to do. Where was I going with that? Well, I miss being able to talk to people in large in a larger, wider group. It's wonderful to go deep and to be inside. It has been great, and it's pushed different boundaries and areas. Getting hundreds of people across dozens of teams, to all row in the same direction, but without becoming artificially stilted and taking what would otherwise be an agile, iterative, nimble process and the ability to pivot. Continuing to do that at scale without having it, slowly degrade into, basically traditional fades, slow, unmoving, classical program management or dev management at scale. That's been really fun, but. Being able to connect with people across a broader group, being able to connect with people I've worked with in past companies or previous clients, I've really missed that aspect of being able to interact. So I'm starting this live streaming experiment. One, to begin to have content like this. That one, as it's being, as I'm delivering it live. There's the opportunity to interact with folks, which you may see me looking to different screens. I'm looking to make sure that in the event someone does post a comment either to YouTube or Facebook, that I see it and can actually respond. But so far, that is not a thing that I'm seeing just yet. But being able to interact in that way, and then also to be able to capture that material for folks who can't join and interact live, and have the ability for them to watch it later on demand, as they're able, and in smaller, more frequent. And honestly, digestible chunks, because it's one of the things that makes producing video about this material daunting is when you're, producing a video, making a video. You, especially historically, because of the overhead of video production, it's like, well, this needs to be a sizable, meaningful chunk of content, right? That makes it makes sense to go through the trouble of making this video. So you typically take like a really popular talk of yours, or if you're working on a book or have a book or a few, chunking up segments of that into talks, and it just creates this overhead and barrier to jumping in. So the idea around being able to do live video, talk about these things, hopefully interact, with an audience and answer people's questions in real time. Thank you, Jackie. Miss Jackie Craver, VP of CS at Zwift, my current place of work, whom I deeply appreciate. Love your leadership as well. But when the barrier is lower, the opportunity for participation is greater, and the opportunity for connection is more frequent. It's even when you make the big videos, you put it out there and it's like, well, how many people even make it through it? I can tell you. Like the videos that are currently out of me that are from, conference talks in 2012, they're an hour in length, just like the conference sessions were, right? And people who feel comfortable enough, they'll say, I watched your video. I didn't get all the way through it. I watched some of your video, or I typically jump to this section, when I watch it. So, which is great feedback, right? People don't necessarily have an hour to sit and listen to you go through a topic. And while they may be interested in the entire topic, maybe they can only afford to take it in 15 minutes at a time, 30 minutes at a time. So part of this experiment will be just putting some stuff out there and seeing how it goes, and knowing that, some of it will fail. I mean, and not resonate, but some of it may. And given how relatively easy it is to connect in this way and get these things out here, I thought I would give it a go. Now, thinking about talking a little bit about the work that I do and what I'm seeing lately or these days. It's been interesting to check in with friends. You know, once we got settled into the world of the work from home and the pandemic, ironically, I got a little bit better at connecting with colleagues who are not local to me, and with whom I haven't done the best job of staying in touch. And those conversations, as well as dealing with the challenges and the transformations that we're going through at my current company, and advising colleagues and clients who are attempting to do similar things in other companies amidst these constraints, I'm noticing a few things. One is in some ways, remote and distributed team members, their inclusion in teams that are otherwise co-located, that has improved. Because when everyone's, and it's this is not new, when everyone's distributed, you're on more of an equal playing field. It's when the majority of a team is co-located in a single location that those who are remote have to work extra hard, and hopefully the co-located members of the team also work extra hard to include them. But even when when you're totally dialed in on that, it can still really be a challenge. Another thing I'm seeing is the general trend of teams to rely heavily on their tools, and by tools meaning, Jira, Pivotal Tracker, Rally. But Jira is really eating the world these days, isn't it? I'm finding that the challenges of work from home have led some teams to lean even further into some of Jira's constructs that really are anti-patterns and create friction for the kind of outcome and arrangement you're trying to arrange for teams. Because I often talk about the 4 key outcomes of effective development process, and those 4 key outcomes being cultivating for the team, cultivating an understanding of the team's capacity, and that happens through interaction and discussion around the approach of the work. That's how a cross-functional team that has different disciplines of engineering and people from UX, QA, and if you're talking about unique aspects of software development like video game development, game designers, artists, technical artists, you're all of these different people, they build an understanding when they have one special craft that comes together with all of these other crafts to be able to make the things. As a team, you come to understand your capacity, or that your throughput, how much work you can responsibly, sustainably commit to. You build that understanding of your capacity through collaboration and better discussion. Over time, the environment artist comes to understand generally what makes for a higher level of effort or a lower level of effort for a back-end server engineer, and so it is with all the others. And in over work from home, it's like people have gone deeper into mostly interacting via comments in Jira stories and subtasks, and less in Slack channels or in Zoom meetings. And And you see it. You see it in the outcome at the end of a development cycle or sprint. There are things that might be technically done, or at least seem like they were done, but when it comes to how things are actually how it's actually working during user acceptance testing, could have been a lot better. Or they all at the start of of a sprint or a cycle, when they were planning, it seemed super straightforward. Like this should only be 3 story points or 5, and it in retrospect it was closer to a 13 or a 20. But that wasn't known because those conversations weren't happening, right? You had individuals writing subtasks and writing them in isolation, adding them to a user story in Jira, but not saying to the group, well, I'm planning to approach the implementation this way, which might spur conversation or clarifying questions from another team member of, well, wait, are you saying that you actually have to rework the persistence code as well as the caching code to make this happen? Well, yeah, of course I'm going to have to, because you're modifying this underlying data structure and I have to represent it all the way through. Oh crap, I had no idea. Those are the kind of conversations and interactions you want to have happening when a team is planning a development cycle together. And so I've seen, while everybody's on a more level playing field, they're not necessarily leveraging that playing field to have those conversations, and instead relying on, well, we're all remote, so let's just enter subtasks or make comments in tickets and hope the other person's both read and understand what it is we intended in the comment that we threw in there at 4:45 before we had to sign off for the day. So it's those are the kinds of things that I love talking to people and people across a wide range of companies and domains, because the more settings and the more people that you talk to and interact with about how agile, lean, iterative techniques and approaches to product development, around how they leverage them, the more you build your own toolkit, because you start to realize some of the limitations of the tools that maybe for you right now in your current setting, you think, well, the way I'm approaching Scrum right now, it works for everything my team and I conceivably do, and I can't see how I would possibly need to do anything differently. And then you go meet someone who works at an enterprise software company, or a video game studio, or a medical device software company, and you suddenly realize, oh wow, these tools and techniques can be stretched way farther, and I can be dealing with a way wider range of functional disciplines and have to understand them and be able to clearly convey context and information about my craft to people who have currently no understanding of it, and likewise they have to do that to me. And so I've missed that about coaching and consulting, and it seems like if I can get this thing going and obviously work through some of the technical and production glitches in integration that would be necessary, that I don't know, maybe we might be able to have some of that connection more often. So yeah, that's what I'm up to with this. There's a lot to figure out, and I have some changes as my family and I are looking for somewhere more permanent and long term than the place we currently lease and that sort of thing. And that might lead to it'll certainly lead to a different setting than this nuclear explosion that's popping off behind me. I just figure Luria Petrucci of Live Streaming Pros, she will frequently mention no excuses. Hashtag no excuses is in a lot of her material. And as I started learning, what it takes to do live streaming and started to get some of the technology in place, I began to feel really comfortable with knowing some of the things. But I also became comfortable with, well, this is not optimal, or this isn't, this background is not optimal at all. And, I haven't quite worked out the, social media live streaming integration of comments to be able to bring those into the, into the video stream and that sort of thing. And I was curating, a number of reasons to not just get started and try it. But this week it hit me that, I'm actually coming up with quite a few excuses. So I decided, hey, I have the day off this Friday. Let's see if I can get these things hooked up and just do one of these. So that's what this was. So thank you for putting up with the rambling in some degree, possibly a high degree of stream of consciousness. I know at times I probably was right on par with an Emily Dickinson poem, but thank you for tuning in. Obviously there'll be more runway in advance notice once the actual cadence of content gets going, and I hope that you'll keep an eye out for that and join me and interact, ask your questions. I definitely have to have both ask a question at any time, but also dedicated Q&A space. So it's like I won't even be talking. There'll be nothing to distract you. You can ask me the question that you have, and then I'll answer you, as will the other people who join. Because it's not just me. It's there. I have the pleasure of meeting and knowing some fantastic people, and I look forward to having them contribute and interact with you all as well. So hey, for those of you in the States, I hope you have a great holiday weekend. Be safe, and we'll see you soon. Now, how do we turn this thing off? I was tempted to do the to imitate Snoop Dogg from his having left his stream on for hours yesterday, but I won't.